behaves in the backend, just from a high-level perspective, nothing too technical. So with that, we will review table structure, parent keys, and parent and child table relationships. After that, we'll actually dive into some syntax, into how to write a query, and using SAP Business One's tools that allows you to write a query very fast. And at the very end, we'll answer some of your questions. If there are any more advanced questions that are quick to review, we can review them on the fly, accessing Business One, or we need just a follow-up meeting to talk a little bit more into detail. Ready? You know SAP Business One. Alrighty, so without further ado, first I'd like to talk about where are queries used. So as you know, SAP Business One gives you some very nice out-of-the-box reports, right? If I go to modules and then go to the reports module, these are just, a summary, obviously, of all the reports that are available in the various modules of SAP. However, sometimes you may find that, you wanted to add an additional filter to, let's say, the sales analysis report, or you want to display additional data, maybe data that's in a user-defined field. So when you want to manipulate those reports, obviously those reports are static, so we cannot change them. However, we can recreate them in our own way, or we can create a new report entirely based on, some additional requests from the team that's requesting that report. For that, writing a query is one of the ways that we solve those problems. Generally, we start using this tool that's called Query Generator. Under Tools, Queries, Query Generator. And Query Generator allows us to essentially, select whatever tables we want to take information from. We can, select what fields we want to see. So this tool allows us to, start creating very basic queries. Once we write those, and I'm not getting into details because we will actually go over this once we get to it, you have the ability to save those queries in the Query Manager option that we have up here on our icons menu. And we can categorize such queries, we can save them right as sales. Some of here are Ryan queries, just, those that are relevant to him. I have some queries that are included in approvals and things like that. So that's one of the problems that writing queries and saving queries solves, right? When you don't have that report that you're looking for and you want to simply add an additional column, or you're just trying to get some information that the out-of-the-box reports can give you. So that's problem number one that it solves. Second, queries actually can provide a way to filter out or give conditions to alerts that I want to send in SAP. For instance, if I go to the alerts module, okay, and I say, okay, let's go ahead and add a new alert. You can see here that I can, open a saved query, right? If I go into the alerts module, I haven't actually created one, but let's say, right, that we want to, this is just going to go very fast, but just for the purpose of demonstration, that I want to display an alert or create an alert for customers that have a balance that is higher than 20,000, right? An open balance of 20,000. we can see that all of these ones are showing up in my list. Save as, alerts, and here we go. Customers with an open balance greater than 20,000. Okay. All right, so if I go back to my alerts and add, you can see that now I can select that query, right? And I can notify various people on the results of this query, right? I can set this on a schedule. So this is another way that queries can help us, right? I can either use the out-of-the-box alerts that come in with SAP, MRP recommendation due, deviation from budget. These are all out of the box. But if I wanted an additional condition or filters or a very specific situation that the out-of-the-box system is not giving me, that's when we want to make use of queries as well. Third, queries can also be selected in approval procedures. So some of you may be using approval templates or approvals in SAP. Those of you who are not and are interested in using it, well, you should know that you can, under terms, you can set up when do I want to require approvals, right? For instance, here we will define who is subject to approvals, what document we want to include in approvals, right? Anybody adding a sales order, a purchase order, things like that. Under stages, this is just who needs to be the approver. And under terms, I can say, similar to our alert system, when the following applies. So we have some out-of-the-box conditions, such as discount percentages, and we can assign a value, total document. We can say, for example, okay, when the following applies, anytime that somebody's going to add a sales order and they are past due, let's say for more than 60 days with a certain amount, right? So those kinds of conditions are very specific. And we definitely would need, in that case, to select a query, right? Here, say, in that case, we would create something that would be along the lines of, if the customer is past due, 60 days, and, current limit is over this much. So just things like that, where we're looking at 2 or more things that are not included with these options that SAP is giving us, then queries are very helpful. Another way that we can use queries, and that we will get into later on, since it's a little bit more advanced, is if I go to Crystal Report, let's say that I want to update my sales order layout. Okay, I think I pressed edit. We have the ability to add not just tables to Crystal reports, for instance, select what table you want to pull from, but you can actually create a query that gives you the data that you're looking for without having to scroll through all those columns, all those various pieces of information that just come with selecting a table. You can customize your unions, things like that. So that's another way that we use queries in Crystal reports. Additionally, another area that we use queries, or once you get more advanced, you get familiar with SQL syntax and the language, you can then start writing some additional logic pieces directly in SQL Management Studio. You can create SQL views, SQL stored procedures, functions even, but that is as you are, looking to do more things directly in SQL. Good. So next I want to talk about database structure. So just to kind of understand what tables are, database, things like that, that will give you a little bit more foundation when you do start writing some queries. So if I go to now SQL Management Studio, let's go ahead and close this. Okay. All right, so right now I am logged into SQL Management Studio. You won't need to log into SQL for writing queries. You'll begin with using a query generator in SAP. But we have to look at the structure in the back end just to see what data we're pulling and then how is it all related, right? So as I go into SQL, I can see that I have this option called databases. So these databases relate to the list of databases in SAP, right? I have a demo database in Brazil, a couple of demo databases, and a test database, right? So I can go back to here and look at them, right? Test, SAP Demo US, test, and demo Brazil. So if you do work with multiple companies, more than one company, then you would be querying, from different places. So let's say that I'm going to go ahead and open SAP Demo US test. You can see that there are many SQL objects, of which I'm most concerned with tables. Okay, so all the tables here pertain to an SAP window. So for instance, if I go to Business Partner Master Data, okay, look at the vine, and I hover over this field, you can see that there's some information displaying on the lower left hand side. I hover over the code, then you can see the name of the table is OCRD, and the name of the field is SCAR code. So if I go here and I look for that specific table, let's do a quick select statement. You can see that it's composed of many columns, right? Order, based on relevance. We have the customer code, customer name, business partner type, in this case customers, right? To which customer group they're assigned to, some header address information, open balance, discount assigned, credit limit. So all of that information that's in here is because, right, we have those fields that we're adding information to. So for example, if I look at phone number 2, right, and I go to my window here, we can see there's no information there, right? So if I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then hit update, and then I run this again, then you can see that phone 2 now is displaying that value, right? So this two-dimensional structure of tables, composed of columns and rows, saves the information that you input here in SAP. Now I created this Excel spreadsheet right here that saved some information about the Business Partner Master Data window, right? So when we look at any window in SAP, right, any record, you are going to see that one window may reference multiple tables. Now, for example, if I hover over here, right, this is OCRD with all the header information, but that essentially is one record in the table, right? There's only one bill divine. There's only one, Claudia Nino, from Costco, something like that. So in order to save multiple records, let's say multiple addresses that relate to one customer, SAP then saves that in a separate table, which is called a child table. So this is parent information, children information, which are tables that depend on this main one, right? So if I go back to my Excel, we can see that for business partner master data, the header table is called OCRD. It's composed of 4 letters and it starts with an O. That's how you know a table is a header table. And then we have one example of our child table. That's the addresses table. Okay, it conveniently takes the last 3 letters of the header table, CRD, and it assigns a number to it. It could be 1, it could be anything, right? So if I go to CRD1 in my list of tables in SQL, and then do select top 1,000 rows, you can see that, right, this child table is referencing the car code, right, from OCRD, and it has a unique identifier of address, and the relevant street, block, zip code, city, county, all of that good stuff. And obviously it also assigns what kind of type of address is it, right? Is it a ship to or is it a bill to? So if I go back here, we are going to see that the way that those 2 tables are linked together, because there has to be a link or a commonality between them, is via this parent key field, right? So OCRD, the parent key is card code. CRD1, the parent key is also that, right? So whenever this matches this one, that's how he knows that these 3 addresses pertain to this record. Okay, so now that we've reviewed, that basic database structure and what tables are and how tables are linked together, now let's go ahead and create our query. And let's start with something simple. Let's say that I want to create a list of existing customers with some basic contact information such as telephone, email address, and all the related addresses that are related to the customer. So for that, I'm going to open the Business Partner Master Data window, since we are going to be looking for some fields here. And also I'm going to open Query Generator under Tools. Query Generator is a very easy to use tool that comes with, your system, and it's just a basic way of creating queries. So here to the left-hand side, I'll go ahead and do OCRD. So I need to give the table name here, and then press the Tab button. Okay. So you can see that all the major fields here in this table now are displaying. Name is the actual field name, whereas the description is what does this mean, right? So we want to select the business partner code, the customer name, and we are going to select telephone 1, telephone 2, fax, and email. And in addition to that, I want to bring in some address information, right? So if I go to my business partner master data and go into addresses, you will probably remember that the name of the address table is CRD1. So I'll go ahead and minimize this. Now I enter CRD1 tab, right? Okay, so now here I will select address name, and depending on how your address information is structured or what fields you're using, you would select those relevant fields, right? In my case, I know that I'm using street number, street, block, city, state, where is state? Right here, zip code, and country, right? And then also I want to know what kind of address type it is. So if it is a billing address or if it's a shipping address. So go ahead and select that. So let's go ahead and execute now. Okay. Now let's see what we got. Okay, so we got our BP code, BP name, phone numbers and fax, email. And then we've got some address information, right? Such as the address name, street, city, state, zip code, county, and country, and so forth. Okay. Now, if I scroll the way down, you can see that pulled customers and vendors. I'm not interested in seeing the vendor information, so I'm going to do what's called a where clause, right? So where, and I'm gonna say my record, BP record, is customer. So if I go to Business Partner Master Data and hover over this field, I can see that the field name for this is called car type. So I'll go ahead and say where car type equals and then I just know that C stands for customer and S is for supplier. So you may need to, as you go through some query writing, you may need to pull the whole list first, see what values are under car type, and then do your filters that way. Now if I execute, we can see that we don't have vendors in this list. So that's great. That's what I wanted. Now, I know, because I am the person responsible for writing the query, that S means ship to and B means bill to. But my salesperson may not know that, right? So when something like this happens, we can alter or we can rename, right, those values. So for instance, I'll go back to my query and I'm going to say case when address type equals S, then ship to when address type equals B, then bill to, else nothing, and then we can also relabel this column by saying as address type. Okay, say execute. So now you can see that I've updated my S to ship to and B to bill to. So this is a perfect example, the case when, right, of when address type equals S, then I want to rename it to ship to, right? When address types equals B, then rename it to bill to. This format will be included in some documentation that we can send out after the webinar. So just hang tight. I know it's a little bit hard to grasp, but you will have a sample of this. Okay. All right. So that's good. We were able to add a select statement by deciding or knowing what we needed to select, right? In this case, all of this. From where, right? From what tables in the SAP database do I want to look up this information, right? And where, right? Car type or the BP type is customer. So very basic. We execute it. Now that we've executed this, we can now say save as. And perhaps I can have a new category, right? That's called, let's say, sales. Okay. So here is, I'm going to name it list of customers with basic info. Save. All right, now that we go back to Query Manager and open sales, we can select it, click OK, and now, we don't need to write that all over again. It's just there. Okay, now let's take it up a notch and look at sales information. So let's say that we have a request from management to look at total sales for the year for a specific item across our customer base. So for that, let's go ahead and get started with a query that will look at total sales, and then we're going to filter on that particular item. So if I go back to tools, queries, query generator, now I know that sales orders or sales or order information are saved in ORDR, we saw earlier, right? So we want to look at by customer, right? So I want to select car code, car name, that is just customer code, customer name. And we want to look at the detail of our orders, right? So if I go to open sales order and hover over here, right, we want to look at total dollar amount for a particular line. So in that case, I want to select RDR1, right? RDR1, that's our items table. And I want to say, right, where item code equals, and then you can see that we have this conditions button on the lower right hand side. Conditions. We want to say equal to, and then these variable list will allow us to prompt the user to enter an item when they run the query. So now I'm going to select item code here and line total. That tells me what the total, right, what the total was for that item. And let's just take a quick look and press execute. So now you can see that this little percentage syntax, prompts me for the item number selection. So let's go ahead and select this one. Now I can see that maybe the code will be a little bit hard, you want to accomplish what we're looking for, as maybe users don't have the item codes memorized. So for that, perhaps the description is a little bit better. So if I do execute, then we can see right, HP color laser. This is maybe a little bit better. So let's just select HP color laser jet 4, and now we can see that these are all the sales order records for this item per customer, right? Now, this is out of order, so I like to order by customer, right? In that case, I'm going to use the sort by box and say sort by card code. Now let's give this another shot. You select our item, click OK. Okay, now we can see that it's ordered by customer, right? We have Norm Thompson, although Maxitech somehow here got relabeled. Excuse me. Interesting. Okay. So now, we see multiple records though, but we want to have a sum amount, right? We don't want to see, Norm Thompson 9 times, right? We want to summarize by customer because we want to have a total for, of sales for that item. And also we want to only look at this year. So let's see how we can accomplish that. Well, first we're going to do a sum, right? Which we do by typing sum, open parentheses. And then we need to relabel this as total sales. And anytime that we do a sum, we need to group by the rest of the columns, okay? That's just a rule. And when we do that, we also now want to say where and, right? And means where this item equals to this, and additionally, the date, right, is bigger than or equal to, and we can say to the beginning of this year. We can hard code it into our query, or we can select one of the variables, right? So let's go ahead and say execute. We still select our item. Okay. Looks like there's absolutely nothing for 2018. So let's go ahead and pick another year. Let's say 2006. Let's see if we get anything there. Select our item. Okay, so we do have. So since the beginning of 2006 up until today, this is a total sales, right, for this item for each customer. So yeah, now we don't get those multiple records. We can, we see that it's being summarized by customer name, right? So let's say that I just want to look at 2006, right? Now we have to give it another clause, and less than or equal to, right, December 31st, 2006. Okay, let's select the item again. Okay. Yep, and now we can see that these numbers have changed because it's only including 2006 data. Now you can do the same though for the item, the date selection. You can also select variables so that you can leave it up to the user, right? To say, okay, from when to when do you want to run this query, right? You want to look at total sales, but for what time period? So when I click now execute, you can see that I'm going to select the item once again. And now I have the prompt, right? Greater or equal than, let's say I want to look at 2007, right? Through the end of 2007. Now I get these various variables. Now I can go ahead and do save as, sales, right? And this will be total sales item selected by customer, total sales by customer, with item selection and date range selection. Now I can close all my windows, go to Query Manager, Sales, and now I can see that I have my query saved. Select item. So we do this one. And we have, right, item number KG USB Travel Hub for these amounts. Hello? Dave, can you hear me?
Yeah, we could hear you, Claudia. Yes. So we have some extra time for questions and answers if anyone would like to ask anything.
Okay, so there were some issues with the audio when SAP was opened. Try to bring up the audio. I think there was a scanning routine, Dave, in the background. I'm not sure how that happened, but we'll try to get them a better audio. Yes, it is available.
Yeah, Ryan, I'll email you a copy, and in that email will be a link where you can download it or just view it.
Dave, how was it from your end when SAP was open? Was it okay?
It was okay. I can clean up some of the audio in editing it.
Okay. Well, you're welcome. I hope you have some more questions for follow-ups.
Yeah, we'll just give it one more minute here if anyone has anything.
Yes, and I have SAP open just in case we need to go through anything. Please email documentation. Yeah, so Dave, what I'll do, I'll just send you some documentation I have on some basic syntax. That's something I mentioned in the, earlier today. So that will be helpful for anybody that's trying to give it a try on their own at first. Okay, perfect. Thank you for the feedback, Eve.
All right, that looks like it'll do it for the questions. I'd just like to thank everyone for attending, and as we said, we'll be emailing you all a copy so you can review it and reference it. If there's any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to either myself or Claudia, and we'll either answer it ourselves or direct it to the right person. So once again, thank you all for attending, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone. Take care.